The numbers are right. Everything reconciled. Nothing is missing. There's more data than ever, and less room to think. So what do we actually do next? That's the moment you realize the math was almost helpful.
Hey, it's Cashflow Mike, and welcome back to the Clear Path to Cash podcast. Now, I want to talk about the end of March, right? It's the end of the busy season. More importantly, I want to talk about why it may have felt busier or heavier than it should have, right? And if you're like business owners, or if you're like most advisors that are also business owners, that season's almost over, right? And you're not sitting there thinking, man, this was a great learning experience. You're probably thinking like, man, I'm glad that's done. But let me ask you something. Why did it feel heavier this year? Not longer, not harder, heavier. Well, I just had a conversation with an advisor, a client of mine, just a couple of weeks ago, as a matter of fact. And he said, Mike, hey, I'm not overwhelmed because I didn't know what to do. I was overwhelmed because I had too many things that I could do, right? I had a client, a solid business, but nothing was really broken. But in one meeting, they uncovered pricing issues. They had inventory buildup. They had slow receivables and a potential expansion decision. There was all this stuff that's valid decisions that happen. They're all important. And then he said, I left that meeting knowing more than ever about this client and their business, and I still didn't know what to do first, right? That's the moment. That's the moment that we're always talking about, that one that feels just slightly off, right? But this wasn't just a one-off client. That's the busy season. That's what happens in every single conversation. You see more problems than you can solve. There's things that you can do, the things that you want to do next, but you didn't struggle because the numbers are wrong or the reports are bad or the tools that you had failed. You're struggling because everything becomes important at the same time. That's what that deadline does to you. It becomes important at the same time. And when everything's important, nothing gets done. Nothing gets decided. You're going to carry it on to the next client and then the next one and then the next one after that. That's why it starts to feel heavy. You have the weight of the world on your shoulders. Everybody's problems become yours during this time period. And the the busy season this year, here's the real issue, is that it didn't expose what you didn't know. It exposed what your system can't handle. It exposed when there's a pressure increase that sometimes we don't rise to the occasion and you fall back into your old habits and back into your old system. And that's where most advisory systems stop. Here's what happened. That's what you're asking yourself. Here's what's happening. You're not really answering the question, here's what we got to do next. You're just talking about the past. You get back into old habits. So that's when things really get expensive for you, believe it or not, and not in dollars. I'm not talking about expensive as far as dollars goes, but you're going to start delaying decisions. You're going to start over-explaining things to your clients, jumping in between issues, right? Just from one to the next. And you're going to be avoiding what to prioritize. And it's not because you want to, right? Nobody really wants to do that, but it's because you don't have a clear path forward in that moment. So you default to your safety, right? It's the thing you've always done. It's a safety that feels like work. I'm busy, but not doing anything, right? I'm just filling in the blanks, but it doesn't create movement from the client side. And so here's where I'm going to push on you just a little bit, because most advisors are out there just about doing the same thing. They're just doing the same things, and then they take a breath. Then they reset. They do the same thing all over again. They go right back into the old same season or same system in the next busy season, hoping that it's going to feel different. It doesn't. It won't, unless something else changes. And it's not a workload problem. Chances are you have about the same amount of clients that you had last year. It's a decision system problem. And that's exactly why we built the Clear Path to Cash. Not to give you more answers, it's to give you order, to help you walk into a meeting and know, hey, I know what the issue is, I know what's causing it, and I know what to do next. And guess what? You don't have to carry these 20 loops, these 20 jump between clients in your head. because that's what we're building in May. It's a system that's going to hold the weight for you. When you come to our May live event, you're going to see the system that falls into place, making things lighter. So if that busy season felt heavier than it should have, don't ignore that, right? That's your signal. That's where the improvement is. You felt it. It's that moment. And we know it. And guess what? Clear Path to Cash, it was built for that moment.
The numbers are right. Everything reconcile. Nothing is missing. There's more data than ever, and less room to think. So what do we actually do next? That's the moment you realize the math was almost helpful.